Good morning. Welcome to today's episode. Um, I'm going to talk about our somewhat epic downhill excursion Jason and I did. I was really looking forward to this epic downhill, I call it, because it was the last ride that we had done. We missed it completely. In my defense, it wasn't really my fault. I mapped out the ride through Ride with GPS, and for some reason, when I mapped it out, it appeared like it looked like a road at that part. Anyway, as soon as I thought we were going to do this epic downhill, the road turned to gravel. And then the little pebbles turned into rocks, and then ruts, and then it narrowed and steepened with an embankment on the left and a flowing stream of cold water. So even though we were on our gravel tires, the terrain was a lot more than we can handle. It was more, I think it was meant for either mountain bikes or cyclocross bikes. So somehow we made our way to this gravel road, and it's pretty steep downhill. And it's got you have a creek here on the left side, and there's not a whole lot of clearance on the left. I don't want to fall into the creek, so we're walking this one. As soon as Jason was able to catch up to me, he began to feel some pain in his knee. His knee was bothering him from walking downhill, and I think that might be his kryptonite. Is after his surgery, it seems as though the eccentric movements seemed to bother his knee. So he really wasn't feeling great, having to walk half a mile more to get to the bottom of this road. So then we get to the bottom of it. Jason began to really feel pain at that point, and I look over to my right, and there's this sign that says "Road closed at all times." Holy hell, that was quite a downhill on rocky terrain. It was more of like a mountain biking trail than a road, but it's considered a road, and there's a nice sign that says "Road closed, daily use alternate route." So it was closed. We finally hopped on the bike. It kind of leveled off. It became a dirt road, rideable, which eventually turned into a nice, smooth, paved road. And as soon as we got to the part where the dirt road we were riding on merged with the paved road, I looked over to my right and was like, wow, that was the road that we were supposed to be coming down from. So what I hoped to be an epic downhill ride didn't really turn out the way we wanted it to, but I vowed that I wanted to do this epic downhill. So fast forward 1 week later, I was so excited to do that ride. Same ride, but this time full on paved road. We're going to avoid North Kent Road. I woke up earlier than Jason. I told him that I was going to inspect the bikes, clean the chains, lubricate the chains, make sure the tires had air in it. It was cold that day, so I knew the tires tend to lose pressure when it's cold. The bikes are stored in the garage. So I go out in the garage and take Jason's bike out first. As I was setting it up, cleaning the chain, and I noticed that the rear tire was completely flat. So I thought, no big deal. It's been cold, so I'll just put air into it. I finished cleaning the chain and lubricated it. I went over the tires. I pumped air into the rear tires, fully inflated it to the tires say 80 to 85 psi. So I inflated it to 85 psi, and then pumped the front tires. Then I went over to grab my bike, did the same procedure, cleaned the chains, lubricated it, and pumped the tires. And I did notice, though, that my tires were still fully inflated compared to Jason's, even though they were both stored in the garage at the same time. And long story short, he checked it, and it was flat. So we got that taken care of. We replaced it with new tubes and drove out to our starting point in Milford. Got out of the car. We should have known this. It was freezing. The weather app that I use, or the Weather Channel app, said it feels like 17 degrees. So we were freezing at that point. But I thought maybe once we get riding, we'll start to warm up. I didn't think of it because we've ridden in cold temperatures before. I really should have thought about that beforehand. Supposedly it's about 17 degrees. Well, it's actually 33 degrees, but according to the Weather Channel app, it said it feels like 17 degrees. So I'm all bundled up. I actually got overshoes. These Rapha overshoes because I think there's too much ventilation in my shoes and I was getting air was coming through. I did stop and ask Jason about a quarter into our ride if he'd consider taking a connecting road and back to our car, but he insisted on doing this climb. So I went along. He was pretty excited about it, and I said, okay, fine, we'll go. I was feeling pretty awful at that point, though. But then I thought maybe if I just kept pedaling, I would start to warm up. I did warm up on the ride by just continuing to pedal, but I somehow wasn't enjoying it as much as I did in the past. So fast forward, we're at the top of Skiff Mountain, which is that challenging uphill. It's 0.4 miles. I think the average grade is 8%. Oh, super hard climb. That was only 0.4 miles, but man, that was rough. We make it to the top, and there is a pond there, and the pond is completely frozen over. So we're up 1,300 feet, super cold. It was cloudy pretty much all day, so there's no sun to warm us up. So I'm really now dreading this downhill because I know for sure my fingers are going to be numb. And if they're numb, I may not be able to brake properly or change gears or whatever it is that I need to do. So we begin our descent. And sure enough, my fingers went numb. Then there was this like throbbing pain, and I got to the point where I wanted to get down that mountain as quickly as possible, that I kept thinking and just ignore the pain, just get down it as quickly as possible. And I was at one point scared going fast because I couldn't feel my fingers. I wasn't sure if I was even pressing on the brakes. Then I saw the sign that tells you like how fast you're going and then the speed limit. And I wasn't going at all. I was going below the speed limit. So as soon as I saw that sign, I started to slow down. And we finally get to the bottom of the road, and I immediately stop. I said to Jason, I have to stop because as soon as I pulled my fingers out, they were bright red, like tomatoes. And they were numb, and they were just in so much pain. So my initial instinct was to remove my gloves and blow hot air into it. And so that seemed to help. And then I realized, what the heck was I doing removing my gloves for? So I put my gloves back on, and I had my jacket actually has these two front pockets that have the thermal fleece in it. So I immediately stuck my hands in there. And so that seemed to have warmed it up. So at that point, we were 10 miles from the car. We just rode back down to our car, heads down, just keep pedaling, and still very uncomfortable, even though we weren't doing any downhills at that point. All I could think of was get to the car, blast the heat to high, and stay there. So as soon as we get to the car, I immediately jumped off my bike, set it aside next to my car, turned the car on, and blasted the heat. And Jason and I both stayed in there until we were able to thaw out. So cycling is, in the end, cycling is fun. It's great. It has its challenges. And I wanted to share with you guys that in reality, yes, those are the real challenges. We learned from this experience that we probably shouldn't have been riding below 25 degrees Fahrenheit. At this point, we're just going to Zwift it. And that will be the next couple of videos. You guys will see some Zwift rides, depending on what the temperature is like outside. But I think at this point, 25 degrees Fahrenheit is our threshold. Anything above that, we'll still go outside and ride, but I don't think it's worth it at this point, to really have that type of suffering. Mind you, it was only a 2,100 feet climb kind of ride, and I was so wiped out when I came home, and it took me a couple of days to really recover from that, because I think it was just my body was just not used to being out in that cold for such a long period of time. So thanks for watching, everyone, and I hope you take the time to hit the like button, subscribe for more videos, and stay tuned for a couple of Zwift rides with the Bike Erg. Thanks.